Greetings, everyone. On behalf of the Madison VA Hospital and clinics, I would like to thank everyone for taking the time to be here today as we honor the newest member of the Madison VA Hall of Heroes. I would especially like to welcome our honored guests, the family and friends of Sergeant Akira Toki. I would also like to welcome 3 of our previous honorees who are with us in the audience today here. Private First Class James Anagastopoulos. James. Private First Class Ralph Warner. Thank you, Ralph. And Second Lieutenant James Morgan. My name is Joe Naylor. I serve as the Community Relations Chief here at the Madison VA Hospital, and I will serve as the Master of Ceremonies for today's event. We will open today with a presentation of colors provided by the Madison VFW Post 7591, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand at this time if you are able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. We will now play a short clip introducing you to our Hall of Heroes program.
This is one thing that we can do as a Veterans Hospital that St. Mary's or UW Hospital they don't have something like this. This is special. This is for our veterans, for our staff, for their family members. And it's a way of paying tribute that they're so well deserved.
I joined the VFW in Middleton, Post 8216, and for me that was a changing point in my life. It was brought together a bunch of similar people that have experienced war and probably changed their lives forever. Someone there said, well, you have a Silver Star, we need to do something to recognize that, and the rest is history. I hang on the wall, and the thing I guess if nobody would have ever done that, identify me, it'd still be hidden.
This is their chance. It's going to mean so much to have their family, friends, and actually be in a safe environment versus their initial wards. It could have been right after action. Some general could have pinned on the medal, and it's forgotten. But to have a ceremony like this, I think it means a lot to them. It meant so much to family, VA staff, everybody that knew the veterans just got to hear their stories.
And it's in a great place where everybody sees that goes through there, and you know, the workforce at the VA know you. They've read your story. They've seen you, and they know who you are and what you have done. There aren't many things in life like that.
In 2002, Dr. John Hofer, who has graciously joined us today, then the Chief of Dentistry, began the Hall of Heroes program here at the William S. Middleton Memorial Veterans Hospital. His idea was to honor veterans from the Madison area whose military service was especially heroic. Since the initial ceremony, the program has inducted 15 veterans representing 4 different branches of service with various awards, including the Distinguished Service Cross, the Navy Cross, the Distinguished Flying Cross, the Silver Star, the Bronze Star, and the Purple Heart. Sergeant Akira Toki will join the following distinguished veterans into the Hall of Heroes: Sergeant Thomas Feeney, Captain Thomas Alwyn, Private First Class James Anagnostopoulos, Sergeant Robert Botts, Sergeant Joshua Brennan, Sergeant David Brenzel, Sergeant Daniel Bush, Sergeant Harry S. Dickerson, Captain Donald Heiliger, Second Lieutenant James Morgan, Sergeant First Class Thomas Renault, Corporal James L. Stevenson, and Private First Class Ralph Warner. And they will join the most recent inductee, Lieutenant Norman Morozic. We are honored to recognize Sergeant Akira Toki's heroism and celebrate his induction into the Madison VA Hall of Heroes. At this time, I'd like to welcome the Director of the Madison VA Hospital, Mr. John Rohr.
Thanks, Joe. And thank you to the family and friends of our honoree, U.S. Army Sergeant Akira Toki, for joining us today, both in person here in the room and virtually, and allowing us the privilege of honoring his military career and his lifelong commitment to service, which included thousands and thousands of hours of volunteering here at the Madison VA, where I had the opportunity to meet him many years ago. In 1865, following the conclusion of the Civil War, President Lincoln made a promise to our veterans and to our entire country when he stated what became the national mission for the Department of Veterans Affairs: to care for him who shall have borne the battle and for his widow and his orphan. With those simple but poignant words, President Lincoln affirmed the government's obligation to serve and honor the men and women who make up our America's veterans. While all VA hospitals are here to serve the veterans of our country, the Madison VA is just one of a few who has a Hall of Heroes that really inspire all of us who work here and those who come to visit. The Hall of Heroes is our way here at the Madison VA to honor and recognize local veterans and service members who have served their country in war and have been awarded military decorations of valor, heroism, and specific combat actions. It serves as a reminder of what our courageous veterans have endured and the honors and sacrifices that they've made. Today, we honor Sergeant Toki's heroism as we induct him into our Hall of Heroes. It is also a special day for Sergeant Toki's family as we celebrate his induction. And once again, I want to thank you for being here with us, and thanks to all of you for joining us today. Joel.
Thank you, John. I would now like to introduce one of Akira's grandsons, Joel Sittig. Joel is here to share Akira's story. Joel?
So, who exactly was Akira Toki? Well, I had the honor and the privilege of knowing him for 40 years of my life, and I find that even now I'm learning new things about him that I didn't learn, when he was alive. We'll hear later about his military career, and while he was very impressive in his military career, that was really only a small portion of his life. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the personal accomplishments that went along. So Akira Toki came from humble beginnings. His family, his father moved to the United States around 1903 to Hawaii, where he worked as a sugarcane farmer. Finding this grueling and difficult work, he decided to try his hand working the railroads in California. So he moved to California and started working on the intercontinental railroads, finding himself ending one of those stints in Oklahoma. He started to work at a sugar beet plant, and they wanted to open a branch in Madison, Wisconsin. And so he volunteered to move to Madison, Wisconsin, not knowing anybody in the area, and he settled in the Madison area working for the sugar beet plant, and eventually started farming agriculture. Again, he was the only Japanese resident in Madison. And so he was in correspondence with a woman and a family in Japan, and his wife, his later wife, came to the United States via Seattle, where he traveled to meet this young woman. In 1916, they had their first child, Akira. Later, they had 3 other children. They ran a vegetable farm where they would do what was called a truck farm. So they would grow crops, and then they'd load them in the truck, and they'd take them to the grocery store. So he had a very strong sense of community, and his family had a very strong sense of community to Madison. When the war broke out, actually it was prior to the war, Akira was drafted, but he was given a deferral because he was the only son to an essential part of the community. And so when he went to the draft board, they gave him a deferral, but he made it very clear that if the United States did finally declare war, that he would serve. So in 1942, he reported for duty and was stationed in Sheridan, Illinois. Now, he spent the next year and a half traveling between different military bases because at that time, Japanese Americans were deemed unfit for combat. And in that time, he met a lot of people, he went through a lot of training, and he progressed up the scale. He went from the private to he became a squad leader. But also during that time, his family received a lot of support from the community because there at the time there were some very harsh feelings towards Japanese Americans, but never did his family or him in general did they feel that there was any animosity towards them. In fact, there's a story in his book about how on a leave they were traveling from Illinois to my grandparents' farm in Madison, and they were stopped by the police in Edgerton. And there were 4 of them in the vehicle. The vehicle was searched. They even disassembled my grandfather's fountain pen because they thought maybe it was some type of spy device. Well, upon hearing that, the police chief of Middleton wrote my grandfather, he called down there to get them, kind of released, but he also wrote them a letter, an affidavit, swearing to the honor and the citizenship of this, individual and how, they as a community, they stood behind him. So in 1943, Akira was assigned to the 100th Battalion, part of the 442nd, and he began his service in Italy. In 1945, his tour ended as a sergeant, and he returned to the United States with several decorations, which, again, we will talk about a little bit later. In 1946, he met my grandmother, Mary Toki, who, interestingly enough, was on the West Coast when the war started, and then came to the Midwest because she was put in a relocation center, came to the Midwest, and then eventually, through correspondence and things, met my grandfather. She never wanted to be a farmer. So when she initially met my grandfather, I don't think she saw this as an ideal match. But they spent over 65 years together, and it was a great partnership. As mentioned earlier, my grandfather volunteered for over 50 years at the hospital. I attended some of these functions. I remember as a kid coming here and doing bingo and doing craft activities with some of the veterans. One thing that really sticks in my mind was, and I can't remember which birthday it was, but for some reason, his friends at the VA hospital thought it was a great idea to give him a baby pig. But again, I think the accomplishments and his sense of responsibility as a citizen, were the 23,000 hours that he put into volunteering. And when you think about it, my grandma was probably there for at least 90% of that. So probably somewhere upwards of 50,000 hours. And one thing a quote that I read in preparing this was that my grandfather felt that this country and this town had been good to him and his family, and he felt that he should give something back, and he really did. Having the school named after him was a great honor. But again, these were not things that he did, the volunteering and going to communities and giving talks. This was not something he did because he wanted accolades, because he wanted rewards. He did this because he felt that was his responsibility as a U.S. citizen, as a former member of the military, because again, the community had given so much to him, and he just wanted to give back. That's about all I have to say about a great man.
Thank you, Joel. Appreciate the commentary, and I think we should bring back the gifting of the baby pigs here at the hospital, right? No, thank you, Joel. Next, we'd like to ask Kevin to come up, another grandson of Akira's, to share information on Akira's citations and some of his military history. So come on up, Kevin.
I'm Kevin. I am Akira Toki's great-grandson, and I'm here to tell you about him and his service to our country during World War II. He enlisted in the Army on February 12, 1942, at Fort Sheridan, Illinois. He earned his combat infantry badge and was assigned to the 100th Infantry Battalion, 442nd Infantry Regiment. The battalion was engaged in fierce battles during World War II, earning multiple presidential unit citations and playing a crucial role in the rescue of the lost battalion of the 141st Infantry. The 100th Battalion, as well as the entire 442nd Regimental Combat Team, are undoubtedly among the most decorated units in the United States Army. Akira fought in the rugged Italian terrain of the North Apennine Mountains in the Po Valley, as well as the now legendary Rhineland campaign in France. He spent a year and 3 months overseas from September 1944 to November 1945, reaching the rank of sergeant. Near the end of the war, he was wounded in Italy during Operation Grapeshot on April 5, 1945. During Akira's service in World War II, he earned a Victory Medal, American Theater Ribbon, European, African, Middle Eastern Theater Ribbon with 3 Bronze Battle Stars, 2 Overseas Service Bars, 1 Service Stripe, a Good Conduct Medal, and a Purple Heart Medal. After he returned home, in support of his fellow veterans, he volunteered over 23,000 hours from 1959 to 2010. I would like to thank all of you for coming here and the Veterans Administration for recognizing my great-grandpa's commitment to this country and its veterans with his induction into the Hall of Heroes. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. We will now formally induct Sergeant Akira Toki into the Hall of Heroes. Would Director John Rohr and welcome please join me on the stage for the formal induction and unveiling of the plaque. Once again, please stand if you are able. Wait for my cue. Thank you. While serving in the Army during World War II, Akira distinguished himself on the field of battle, earning many distinguished valorous citations and a Purple Heart. Through action and deed, he brought great credit upon himself, his family, his service, and his country. It is my honor to formally induct Sergeant Akira Toki into the William S. Middleton Memorial Veterans Hospital Hall of Heroes. You may remove the cloth. Akira's plaque will be placed in the Hall of Heroes next to our other valorous veterans. The Hall of Heroes is located just outside the door here near the Patient Education Resource Center. You may be seated. I would like to thank Carol Welch, right here, and our Madison VA Voluntary Service Executive Committee for submitting Akira's nomination and giving us all the opportunity to honor him here today. In addition to Akira's storied military career, and this has been mentioned several times, he volunteered here at the hospital for nearly 60 years, and that is a feat in of itself, accumulating nearly 23,000 hours during that time, and he got a pig out of it. I would also like to thank Akira's daughter Welcome, and all the family members and friends that were able to join us today and make the trip down to Madison. Each family member will receive a certificate after the ceremony as a memorial gift to commemorate this occasion today. And on the eve of Veterans Day, we want to sincerely thank all the veterans here that are in attendance, all the family members here that are in attendance for your sacrifice, service, and unwavering dedication to our country and to our communities. This concludes the ceremony today, and thank you all for taking the time to be here.